that the partnership between BJA and CSG and Pew has really enabled the work to be done, to be supported, and to be implemented at the state level. It's a combination of overlapping missions and complementary skill sets and capacities that the three organizations on the stage here today bring and have enabled this work to achieve. And BJA, as the public sector partner in justice reinvestment, has been there from the start, nearly a decade now. And so it makes sense to kick off this event with a keynote from Assistant Attorney General Karol Mason. Nominated to lead the Office of Justice Programs by President Barack Obama and confirmed by the U.S. Senate in April 2013, Assistant Attorney General Mason oversees an annual budget of more than $2 billion dedicated to assisting state, local, and tribal governments and their criminal justice systems through a broad portfolio of juvenile justice programs, research, evaluation, and statistical analysis, and services for crime victims and more. A more complete biography is in your summit program, and please join me in welcoming Assistant Attorney General Karol Mason.
Good morning, and thank you, Jake. And I am really delighted to be here. And I've been following this work since my first stint in the Department of Justice in 2009. So I'm really excited to be here and thrilled to be able to address you all. And you're going to hear recurring themes in all of our remarks, and you all are our partners as well. And so I'm delighted to be here with the leading criminal and juvenile justice policymakers, researchers, and practitioners from across the country. And I was so determined to get here yesterday. I know that for those of you from the East Coast know that we had weather issues, and they told me when I got to the airport that I would get on a flight from Minneapolis at 9:30 this morning, and I said, that's not gonna work, but I checked my bag anyway. Just said, I'm just gonna deal with it. Went up to the Delta Crown Room, and I said, I need to get to San Diego tonight. Just kept very nice, and she got me here. I got here about 11:30 last night, which is 2:30 in the morning, but I'm here and awake, and I haven't had coffee. Well, the reason why is I don't drink coffee. It would be dangerous if I did have coffee. So I came to here today bearing greetings from the Attorney General, who asked that I convey his deep appreciation for the groundbreaking work you are all doing, and in fact, leading your states and communities. As he has traveled the country promoting the department's Smart on Crime initiative, the department's held up the justice reinvestment as a model for how we think about crime and justice policy. And his enthusiasm for this work goes back to when he entered the office. I remember an early briefing about the Justice Reinvestment Initiative and his excitement about it and how we could learn from it on the federal level as well. So you're being role models for everyone. And I want to single out Adam and Mike and their staff and colleagues at Pew and the state, Pew on the state, Center on the States, and the Council of State Governments Justice Center for their outstanding leadership and for their partnership with the Office of Justice Programs. They have brought such a high level of expertise and insight to the Justice Reinvestment Initiatives, and I've had many briefings in my past 16 months from them, and I can tell you that I come out of that every interaction with them so excited about the work that you all are doing. And our successes would not have been possible without their contributions. So thank you. As mentioned earlier, we've got other partners in VERA, Institute of Justice, the Urban Institute, and the Center for Effective Public Policy, and the Crime and Justice Institute, all are who have also key integral parts of the Justice Reinvestment Initiative. And of course, I have to thank my colleagues at OJP. Denise is with us in spirit. You've heard from Ruby. Julie James is here. I see Karen Bahar from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and I see some more folks who I can't see from the lights are not good. So everybody from OJP, please stand up for a minute so we can see you. Oh, there they go. So thank you for the great work that you all do across the department to deal with this work. And as I mentioned, our Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention has now taken on the juvenile justice reinvestment work, and some of you all met yesterday to begin that work. And she hates when I do this, but she knows it's coming. Amy Solomon. We've got to give a special thanks to Amy Solomon. She has been a tireless advocate for this work and related work, and as the Attorney General calls her, he calls her his General Eisenhower. Now, her brother-in-law said that wasn't a compliment, but it was a compliment. So I can legitimately say that the Justice Reinvestment Initiative has transformed the way we approach public safety in this country. It is no exaggeration to say that it has helped redefine the missions of our criminal and juvenile justice agencies. Thanks in great part to the focus that your work has given to justice policies, corrections leaders, law enforcement officials, and prosecutors have begun to measure their performance not by the narrow metrics of arrest, convictions, and confinement, but by actual improvements to public safety. And this shift in attitude, which as Adam said earlier, and we all keep repeating, we hope this is a permanent shift, but this shift in attitude and approach is paying off. Many states have engaged in justice reinvestment, have seen drops in crime rates and imprisonment, and substantial taxpayer savings. Hear those three things? Lower crime, lower imprisonment, and taxpayer savings. So I hope that's not the only driving factor in this, because we do want this to continue. Having just emerged from the recent midterm elections, it's worth remarking on another important aspect of justice reinvestment. It's an approach to justice policy that resonates on both sides of the aisles. And as you heard Mike say earlier, this is not a program, this is a different way of thinking about how we deal with criminal justice issues. We've seen lawmakers who disagree on just about every other policy matter rally around data-driven analysis focused on investing increasingly scarce public resources in programs and policies that work. And I have to tell you, on my cab ride here last night, the cab driver asked why I was here, and I told him about you all and the work you're doing, and he was so excited about it, really. And so you need to understand that it's not just the Justice Department that cares about it, it's not just policy people that care about it. Your voters, the general public, people in your communities really care about the work that you're doing, and it's important. State and local governments representing all political persuasions have taken on major reforms designed to reduce prison building cost and redirect precious public funds to programs aimed at reducing crime. It can honestly be said that in a climate of intense partisanship, we are witnessing the growth of a broad bipartisan consensus in city halls, state capitals, and Congress, and in taxis, around crime and justice policy, thanks in great measure to justice reinvestment. I'm so proud that much of this work is being done with the support of our Bureau of Justice Assistance, and now with the help of the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, again, in partnership with our friends at Pew, the Council of State Governments, and our other allies. Together, we've worked with 24 states, 17 of whom are still active partners, and 5 of those states have undergone or are undertaking reforms to their juvenile justice systems. We're also working, as Ruby mentioned, with 17 local jurisdictions. And given the problems that Mike outlined, the challenges that you're dealing with, these projects in the local communities will help us figure out how you deal with the other aspects of the problems and challenges that he raised. These sites have undertaken a number of different approaches to addressing public safety. That's the beauty of justice reinvestment. It enables jurisdictions to develop their own strategies tailored to their own needs, challenges, and opportunities. Some states, like Delaware and Kentucky, where are Delaware and Kentucky? Raise your hands. Yeah, I'm just seeing if you're paying attention. Good. Are focusing their efforts on pretrial reform at the front end of the system. Others, like Arkansas and West Virginia, where are you? No, you're here. Don't be shy. Okay, I see them. Are expanding or creating problem-solving courts to address treatment needs. Still others, like, get ready to raise your hands, Louisiana, Ohio, Oregon, and South Dakota, are taking steps to improve probation and parole supervision at the back end. So as you see, this is a very, very flexible initiative that meets your needs where you need us. And many states have made or are considering statutory changes based on justice reinvestment analysis. Take North Carolina. Where's North Carolina? I know you're here. Good. I'm a Tar Heel. I don't know. By 2010, the number of people incarcerated in North Carolina's prisons had climbed to more than 40,000, which was a 27% increase from a decade earlier. Corrections spending had risen almost 50% during the same period, to more than $1.3 billion with a B dollars. It was projected to increase another $500 million over the next 7 years. In 2011, the state enacted justice reinvestment legislation that helped lower the prison population by almost 3,400 people. North Carolina has closed 10 prisons as a result, and it has used some of the savings to add 175 probation and parole officers and invest in intervention and treatment programs. That's exactly what justice reinvestment is about. So those are things we can celebrate. Now, a substantially greater number of people with felony convictions are exiting prison to supervision rather than straight to the street, and the number of probationers revoked to prison has fallen by half since the law was passed. At the same time, North Carolina has experienced an 11% drop in the crime rate. Now, that's something to celebrate, people. That is huge. And we know that similar things are happening in states across the country. For example, in Pennsylvania. Where's Pennsylvania? I know you're here. There you go. Pennsylvania's corrections budget went up 76% between 2000 and 2011, and its prison population increased 40%. A law enacted 2 years ago redesigned residential community corrections programs into parole, transition, and violation centers and capped terms for technical parole violators. Since then, the prison population has declined by more than 700 inmates, and the 3-year return to prison rate has dropped by 7%. That's huge. And preliminary studies indicate that performance-based contracts for community centers may have reduced recidivism by 16%. That's great. Let's celebrate that as well. Now, Adam made a comment about Georgia being here in the room, and that's also my home state, and I'm going to tell you why they are here in the room. Georgia was struggling with similar growth in its prison population. It more than doubled between 2000 and 2011. Without reform, it would likely have grown 8% by 2018 at a cost of $264 million. The state passed a law that focused prison beds on serious offenders, expanded alternative sentencing operations, and strengthened probation. Instead of growing, Georgia's prison population is now down by 8%. The state has saved over $20 million alone in direct payments to the counties for holding state prisoners in local jails. And of particular interest to the department, the impact of these changes have had on the people of color cannot be overlooked. While prison commitments of white males dropped 1.5%, commitments of black males dropped a full 19% from 2009 to 2013. That is huge success. So for my Georgia, these examples are just 3 of many justice reinvestment successes. We're seeing similar progress in states across the nation, so don't be alarmed that I didn't mention your state. It's because she's timing me, and I've gotten a certain amount of time, so I can't mention everybody's successes, but they will be talked about throughout the program the next 2 days. So we're seeing success from Hawaii to New Hampshire and places as politically diverse as Kansas and Connecticut. This progress is reflected in a general downward trend in both crime and incarceration rates throughout the country. I know Bill Sable is here somewhere. You'll hear from him later. He's the director of the Bureau of Justice Statistics, and he will make sure that you understand the significance of seeing both crime and incarceration both going down together. Before the FBI released its most recent data last week, crime had declined nationally by more than 11% since President Obama took office. The new FBI data shows additional drops in violent crime in 2013. On top of that, the rate of incarceration has gone down by more than 8% since 2009. It's the first time these 2 measures have fallen together in more than 40 years. Again, that's truly historic, so let's celebrate that as well. Because you know the challenge that you have in this work is people thought, okay, when you reduce incarceration, crime is going to go back up. But it's not, because you're being smart about how you're doing it, and we're reinvesting the resources in what we know works to bring down crime as well. We're experiencing a moment of public safety unprecedented in most of our lifetimes, but this is no time to relax. So while we're celebrating here, this is a challenge. We're throwing down the gauntlet because we want to make sure that the data that we're seeing, the successes that we're seeing, continue to beyond our lifetimes. I'm going to try to find a young person in the room. So Jake, I think it's you, and Abby. So when they're my age, I want this room to be full of people celebrating, continuing to celebrate the successes that all of you all put in place. So those of you who've been in this business for a while know that the winds of justice and sentencing policies have always blown hot and cold. If we don't take advantage of this momentum we've built through the justice reinvestment and embed this data-driven mindset into the mainstream, we risk a return to the counterproductive practices of the past. But that's not going to happen, right? Do I hear that commitment? Okay, you accepted the challenge. In fact, truth be told, we are still two nations when it comes to prison trends. The extraordinary success in reducing incarceration that we've been able to realize in many states has been offset by continued increases in others, but with you all going outside and telling your stories, you're going to reverse that trend. Now, to be sure, these figures don't reflect that some of the states with increases are now working through justice reinvestment to change course, and I'm confident that we now have the wind at our back and we will remain vigilant as you just committed. Nor can we be content to address the challenges by facing the adult system. Perhaps an even greater test of our creativity, resourcefulness, and commitment will be addressing the juvenile population. Those of you who've heard me speak before have heard me say that we really have a very simple to our long-term criminal justice issues, and that's making sure our young people don't enter the system. It's real easy, supply and demand. You cut off the supply, you cut off your issues at the back end. So in many cases, we lack basic data on youth recidivism, and this means we don't have a complete picture of the nature of juvenile reoffending in our country. What we do know is that residential placement for juveniles is not always an effective intervention. It's more costly than alternative sanctions, and it may actually increase the likelihood of reoffending for some youth. Fortunately, some states are beginning to tackle this very complex and important issue, and I'm pleased that we're here again with Pew to make inroads in the juvenile justice system. The Attorney General recently announced awards to 3 states under the SMART on Juvenile Justice Initiative, which is administered by, I'm going to say OJJDP, because it's taking too long to say the rest, and she's going to hold up her 5-minute hand in a minute. Okay, she did, see? Georgia, Hawaii, and Kentucky are working with Pew to make reforms aimed at reducing recidivism, decreasing correctional spending, and improving public safety, and ultimately to reduce the number of youth who've come into contact with the criminal justice system. And many of you all met yesterday with Karen Bahar and others from OJJDP to begin that work. Research in neuroscience informs us that brain development continues well into the 20s. And I'm holding my tongue and not to say particularly with men. Just seeing if you're awake. So even young adults, those between the ages of 18 and 24, are vulnerable to the same risk factors as kids, factors like poor impulse control and negative peer influences. And that should matter to every person in this room because young adults are involved in a disproportionate number of violent acts and recidivate at a higher rate than older adults. But along with these vulnerabilities comes a huge bright spot. Because they are psychosocially similar to kids, they are amenable to treatment and intervention. By using developmentally appropriate responses to hold young adults accountable and by reserving incarceration only for the most serious cases, we have an opportunity to reduce future criminal activity and reduce the number of future victims. So one of my goals before my tenure is over is to really focus not only on the juvenile population, but also on this group of 18 to 24-year-olds so that we can make sure that we are setting them on the right path to successful lives as well. Meeting the needs of our youth is only one of our challenges. Another critical test, one that I believe will determine the viability and legitimacy of our criminal and juvenile justice systems, is rectifying the racial and ethnic disparities that cloud the public safety landscape. One of the many things that our justice reinvestment work has taught us is that certain communities shoulder an unusually heavy burden of incarceration. While so many other areas of the country are prospering, these neighborhoods are watching as their young men are being arrested and imprisoned, often for low-level crimes. I don't have to tell you that these communities are low income, low opportunity, and heavily minority in composition. The damage being done goes beyond the inmate consequences of arrest and incarceration. An even larger problem is the erosion of trust that results when citizens of these communities feel that they are being singled out for treatment for no legitimate reason. Addressing these disparities has been a top priority of the Attorney General. He launched his Smart on Crime initiative to right the balance by ensuring fair and proportionate punishments and by expanding investments in proven crime prevention and reduction strategies. And this means curbing our over-reliance on incarceration and looking to evidence-based approaches that actually stem recidivism and enhance safety. This philosophy also informs the President's My Brother's Keeper initiative, which is designed to give every young person who is willing to work hard and play by the rules the chance to reach his or her full potential. And that means stop making our justice system the default institution for at-risk youth. I'm going to say that again. That means stop making our justice system the default institution for at-risk youth. And I learned something last week in our listening session on mentoring programs, and our young people told us, they said, stop calling us at-risk youth. Start calling us at-promise youth, at-hope youth. The terminology we use is important, and these folks are our future leaders. And I'm counting on you all to figure out how do we make sure that we're investing in the futures of all of our young people. So the lessons that are being learned from Justice Be Investment will be crucial as we move to meet the challenges of reestablishing justice system legitimacy in our communities and in rebuilding the trust in our communities. And before she pulls I am going to leave with that. Thank you very much for being here.